we've invited you, civic and elected leaders, and the media today so that we can get the word out about all the work that's underway. We don't want to take more than an hour, and while there will not be time for questions, I encourage you to reach out to me, and I will either respond or refer you to the right in the right direction. There's so much going on in the incline plane hillside that it can be difficult to see the big picture, our big goal. So along with us getting caught up with it, we thought it might be of interest to you too. And there's a lot of detail that's going to be presented, so it's going to take some focus. I'm very impressed with what the presenters have put together. We think the development of the hillside strategically, responsibly, and collaboratively uplifts the city and the broader region by being an economic driver, as will be discussed by our presenters, a resource to improve health and quality of life for our visitors and residents, including by virtue of being right here in the heart of the city, our underserved neighborhoods and the people that live in those neighborhoods, and really the restoration and responsible use of our natural resources. Just to set the turf, this presentation doesn't intend to discuss all the related work going on throughout all of Cambria and Somerset counties. I'm happy to say we'd be here for a couple more hours if that were the case. And we're truly appreciative and want to acknowledge all those who are working and volunteering so diligently in this regard in our region. This presentation focuses on the incline hillside and how it connects to that greater regional work. We have a lot of political leadership here today, and I'd like to acknowledge them. Emma Thompson and Jason Berardo from Representative John Joyce's office, Brian Subich from Representative Glenn Thompson's office, Grace Nelson from Senator Casey's office, and Lorene Bency from Senator Pat Toomey's office. I'd also like to acknowledge and recognize Patricia Corbett, project officer with the EPA, and Andrea Carson from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who's here today. At the state level, Ellie Doyle from Governor Tom Wolf's office is here, Senator Wayne Langerhoek, Jim Velasquez from Wayne's office, State Representative Jim Rigby, and State Representative Frank Burns. And on the local level, all 6 county commissioners are on. From Somerset County, Scott Hunt, BJ Smith, Tom Chernitsky, from Somerset County, Gerald Walker, Colleen Dawson, and Pam Tokarikis, Johnstown Mayor Frank Janakovic, and Johnstown City Council members Sylvia King and Marie Mock. And Frank Janakovic and Sylvia King are part of Vision Together 2025's board. I wanted to recognize that because that comes up a little bit later. This wouldn't have happened without the support, all this work on the hillside with the support of our elected leadership. And at the state level, the support of the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, the Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Community and Economic Development, and PennDOT. As we go through this, I want to emphasize, this isn't just about attracting tourism, although that's important. This area makes our region this work makes our area more attractive for economic development, to locals, to home buyers, to people who live in the community. It's about making our community what we want it to be. And I want to say we're looking for your help in spreading the word about all that's happening on the hillside. To that end, and with the ongoing support and participation of the Community Foundation, the 1889 Foundation, and many others, Vision Together 2025, our local community engagement effort, has been incredibly instrumental in those happenings. So Bill, if you're on the phone, I'll have you take it over. If not, we'll turn it over to Keisha. Bill, were you able to log on?
Yeah, I was.
Oh, great.
All right. Thanks, Mike, and good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate everybody. It's quite the audience. First and foremost, when Vision was started, it really started with the thought process of a grassroots, boots on the ground engagement. We have over 2,000 people, and this went from an idea really to a movement. And out of those 2,000 folks, we have over 80 capture projects in the last 5 years. And what's important about that is we're getting the community involved from the grassroots to the ground floor, and it creates more of a sustainable strategy for our community when everybody's engaged. Now, everything they're doing is really the overview is we have deliberate priorities. And when we have deliberate priorities from the whole community, it's a lot easier to speak with one voice to the governmental, legislative, and economic leadership. And one of our major focuses has been to take, Johnstown was a steel town, right? It's this dirty, smoggy steel town, and you see in the Rust Belt, and transform it into really more of an outdoorsy, clean, and safe community. And one of the ways we do this, we leverage our landscapes for outdoor activities such as the inclined plane hillside. Because one thing we learned through this process is that environmental impacts create economic impacts. And we're seeing that with the attraction of people coming to Johnstown. As a matter of fact, we have our new CEO, we attracted him from Spokane, Washington, and he saw the outdoorsy town that we've created. And no one knows that better than our vision coordinator, Ryan Keita, has been with us from the beginning. So Ryan, you there?
I am here, Bill.
All right, Ryan, you got it.
Great. Thank you, Bill. As Bill mentioned, I do help to coordinate activities for Vision Together 2025, which in a nutshell is Johnstown's community and economic development initiative, and which encourages residents in the community to get involved in projects that make Johnstown a better place. On the screen is Mike Cook, and I know that Mike is on the phone as well. Mike is a very active presence in the community, and he has been involved with Vision since its start 6 years ago. The effort that Mike has been really passionate about has been to bring new life to an old hiking trail system on the inclined plane hillside. And when Mike first got the idea to revitalize this thing, this trail was not in good condition. It had poor drainage, sections were highly eroded, areas were downright dangerous to hike on, let alone bike on. And so Mike is a great example of civic engagement in action. Mike put together a project plan. He presented it to city council, went out and raised some funding, wrangled a bunch of volunteers from local neighborhoods and from local fraternities, and essentially took on the challenge of rebuilding the entire trail system into what it is today, which is a wonderful asset for the city. Now, this is one guy who had an idea to improve Johnstown in a way he was passionate about. He took on the challenge and he got it done. On the screen is a picture of Mike on the official opening date of the trail system 3 years ago. Fast forward a few years, and the trails today have become recognized regionally as this tremendous community and economic asset. We attract cyclists to Johnstown from Pittsburgh and Harrisburg and DC just about every week. Racing competitions are held down the hillside. When cyclists aren't zooming down, neighbors in Westmont and the city neighborhoods organize nature hikes, which attract all ages. Up until coronavirus, we were seeing a dramatic increase in public events at the top and bottom of the inclined plane, and the whole hillside is just a much more energized space. Trail work also has continued by the dedicated project team volunteers that Mike put together. Over the past 3 years, they have hewn 7 new mountain bike trails by hand, and they've created enough excitement that CamTran began offering single-day passes for cyclists to ride the inclined plane trails and then ride the inclined plane back up all in a single day. Last year, when severe storms damaged sections of the trail, the community rallied around to make sure that they were repaired within 1 week. On the screen also some numbers. 7 trails have been constructed, totaling about 4 miles. 200 people have helped to build these over time, and about $750,000 in immediate spin-off investment as a result of all of this work. I present the story of Mike up front because his volunteer leadership and civic engagement is a wonderful example of how small actions can lead to widespread momentum. Mike and the Trails, in many ways, is the catalyst for a whole bunch of direct spin-off projects that have been initiated, and we'll discuss some of those shortly. But before we do, I'd like to zoom out and provide some context and introduce the Johnstown Urban Connectivity Plan, which is a planning document supported by DCNR and DCD, and which has taken a holistic countywide approach to trail connectivity in Johnstown. The inclined plane hillside really is the nucleus for regional trail planning and connectivity. On the screen, you can see a snapshot of the hillside. and the recreation network that is in development, that we have a number of mountain biking trails. Red represents a proposed zip line, and then riverfront work as well. And here is an image from the Johnstown Urban Connectivity Plan. What's compelling about this slide is that when you zoom out from the hillside, you begin to see all of the trail linkages and connections and how everything converges downtown and on that hill. This page shows a collection of assets, parks, green spaces, other trail linkages that are planned to converge downtown through the Urban Connectivity Plan. And as a result, we envision a county-wide regional system of connectivity. I'm happy to report that the engineering for some of these linkages has already been initiated thanks to the investments of some agencies on the phone. And I'll also mention Cliff Kittner and the Cambria County Conservation and Recreation Authority. Cliff's on the phone as well, and he's been a real central driver for the JUCP. I will quickly walk through some of the assets shown on the screen. To the northwest of downtown, which is the top left of this image, is the breathtaking Conemaugh Gap. A gateway park is currently being developed, spearheaded by the Conemaugh Valley Conservancy and Doug Berry, who's in that image. Everyone, of course, is familiar with the Ghost Town Trail, which last year was awarded the Pennsylvania Trail of the Year. Ghost Town's about 10 miles north of the city, and between Ghost Town and downtown is the Staple Bend Tunnel, which is historical because it is the first rail tunnel in the United States, which was blasted through a mountainside and which dates to the 1830s. To the south of downtown, we have the Jim Mayer Rivers Walk Trail and Greenhouse Park, assets along the Stony, which again are planned to connect downtown. If we zoom even further out, we see the significance on a national scale of trail connectivity within Johnstown. The 9/11 National Memorial Trail is well on its way. This 1,300-mile system of trails and roadways symbolizes resilience and character while linking the September 11th National Memorial and Museum in New York City, the National 9/11 Pentagon Memorial in Arlington, Virginia, and the Flight 93 National Memorial in Shanksville. The trail serves as a tribute to the fallen heroes who perished on September 11, 2001, and the many heroes who committed themselves in the aftermath in response to our country, for their country. And for the purposes of this call, I will just mention that the 9/11 trail is planned to connect right through downtown Johnstown. Here's an overview of some of the investments involved in making these connections a reality. I won't read through all of these numbers, but if there's one point I'd like to reiterate in what I've spoken to today, it's this. These are big transformational goals for our community with economic, health, quality of life, and conservation outcomes that will come with them. I will now introduce Brad Clementson, who is a project manager for the Conemaugh Valley Conservancy and also a September 11th National Memorial Trail board member, amongst many other hats that he wears. And Brad is very well respected locally for his decades of work on recreation projects in Johnstown. And Brad is going to present some of the specific projects, timelines, and details for efforts currently underway on the Hillside. Brad.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. First, let me also reiterate how important the role Cliff Kittner has played at Triple CRA. The city of Johnstown, the mayor and the staff there have just been super as sponsors of a number of the grants that we're implementing. The county commissioners have certainly been super to work with and all totally supportive. Our legislators couldn't have done it without your advocating for the funding and the grants that we've received, and all the agencies providing the money. Thanks. The slide that you're looking at here is an overview of what all we're trying to do on the inclined plane hillside. From the top of the map, we'll have the start of a loop of the September 11th National Memorial Trail, starting at the paved sidewalk built by PennDOT as part of a rock slide stabilization project near Washington Street across from the Point Stadium. Moving south, we hope to realign the trail to make it ADA compliant and get us under the incline to the core of the park, which Ryan dubbed the Sliver. On the south end of the park, we'll continue the 9/11 trail loop on from the Sliver to a vacant lot acquired by Conemaugh Valley Conservancy for parking and access from Kernville. And higher on that hillside, on the bottom of the bottom left of the map, is where Mike Cook's mountain bike trails come in. So there's a lot of pieces there, a lot of things going on. The red also shows the zip line and adventure park. Next slide is the Sliver. On the top of the picture, you can see what the hillside looks like now. The bottom of it is Ryan's caricature of what it will look like, his rendering of what it will look like with a zip line, the paved walkway to the hillside, the boating and fishing access. With all of that going on, and all the traffic going by on Route 56, we're obviously talking about some transformational development that can redefine Johnstown's image as a recreation hub, especially when we move on to do the zip line. Ryan's illustration depicts what's being developed in phase 1, the Sliver, where we'll have an ADA access ramp that goes to the hillside and a paved walkway down to near the Riverside, where we'll develop some boat docks and boardwalks in phase 2. For phase 1, we're going to have just primitive access. So hopefully we can then obtain grants and build the docks and boardwalk immediately afterwards. Right now, we're heavily engaged in the permitting of all of this and trying to put docks and boardwalks right in the floodway can be a little bit challenging, dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers when we're trying to do this in the floodway of what's known as the flood city. But we're working at it and we're confident we're going to get through. This aerial view shows that there's parking right there. The yellow highlight is where the Sliver will be developed, and there's plenty of parking right there. And right across the bridge, you're in downtown Johnstown, where people have access to all sorts of services, restaurants, hotels, our brewery. And so the economic potential of this should be pretty obvious. Then the loop, the 9/11 trail is shown here. On the top of it, you see the trail coming in from Washington Street. And at the bottom, we're going to connect it behind the Cancer Center, the Hillman Cancer Center, the Kernville neighborhood, and people will be able to loop through downtown and across the hillside. People who work downtown will easily be able to go there and enjoy a quiet, peaceful, shady lunch in the woods. So this is, again, Ryan's depiction of what the access from Coconut Place on the southern end of the park will look like behind the Cancer Center. Conemaugh Valley Conservancy acquired the parking lot there, and that's something we've got some design work done on, and the next phase, one of the future phases, we hope to build that. Then on the opposite side, this is the wonderful, beautiful walkway that PennDOT built as part of the rock slide stabilization. And again, this is part of the 9/11 loop that will encircle downtown. So there's an awful lot of pieces of this that we're working on. And the timeline here, as anybody's ever worked on a project knows, that it's pretty ambitious, and we'll see how close we come to doing this. But we need to finish the permitting in 2021, this year. We hope to identify a developer for the zip line this year, build phase 1 in 2022. Probably won't open it until 2023, but Rose will get into that when we talk about the overall construction of reconstruction of the incline. And you can see the other things that hopefully by 2023 we have really good quality fishing and boating access, and the zip line will open same time that the incline plane reopens. So I've sort of segued right into, we still have the funding that's come into on the Sliver. There's a lot of pieces to this. Some of it's still to be determined, but at this point there's over $600,000 that's been spent or is in play and is about to get spent for different parts of all of this. And so it's not a tiny project, and these numbers, the 600,000 doesn't include the boat ramp and the fishing docks and so forth. So this could end up being $1 million, and well over $1 million if you add the zip line, which is to be done by private investors. So with that, I will like to introduce Rose Lucy Knoll. Rose is the Executive Director of Cambria County Transit Authority, or CamTran, and she's been leading the efforts to make sure that the centerpiece of this park we're making keeps open and hauling passengers well into the future. Rose?
Thank you, Brad. Good afternoon, everybody. A rehabilitation program has been developed to keep the incline plane in a state of good repair and to continue the safe operation of this unique transportation feature. The incline can be broken into two components: the upper station building, which includes the motor room, observation deck, and gift shop, and the lower station building with the tracks in between. Critical immediate repairs were identified several years ago and were the first items addressed in a project scope. If you look at the schedule here, you'll look and see that it was 1983 the last time the incline plane was rehabilitated, and in 2016, 2017, Trans Systems and HNTB conducted assessment reports. In 2018, 2019, environmental clearance and preliminary design began. In 2020 and 2021, final design and engineering started. The incline closed at the end of December, and as the rehabilitation begins, we will see projects starting to move in 2021. In fact, in next week, the incline car rehabilitation bid will be advertised to the public. We estimate that the completion of the incline plane project will be sometime in the first quarter of 2023. And I would like to mention too that PennDOT put up a lot of money up front to begin this project with some of the early projects that needed done, which I'll describe going forward here, as well as the support from the county commissioners. If you look here, you have the rewinding of the electrical main motor, elimination of the interior transformers, installation of the exterior transformer on a concrete pad, removal of out-of-service equipment, repair of air compressors, and the rebuilding of the South Safety shiv shaft and keyway. Design for 2019-2020, work to repair or replace various components are planned for the next 1 to 2 years. These items include rehabilitation of the incline plane car, the suspension systems, replacement of all wooden ties, replacement of all track shiv wheel sets, replacement of 8 main shiv wheels, shafts and bearings, track lighting upgrades to color changing LEDs, PA system upgrades, security monitoring upgrades, painting of the lower station, roof replacement of the upper station, upgrade of the safety system, installation of an auxiliary drive motor, and the installation of an emergency generator. Most of the proposed work will be completed within the buildings of the incline, and all work planned will take place within the existing right-of-way. You see here again, as mentioned, here are the, from above you can see the track ties, the auxiliary motors that will have to be put in, and that auxiliary motor and the generator will help move the incline cars back to the top or lower station in the event that we lose electricity. Moving on to our funding, we have federal and state funding of over $1.3 million. And this would not have been possible without the Community Foundation for the Alleghenies, as well as the 1889 Foundation. They contributed, the CFA contributed $250,500, and the 1889 Foundation contributed $107,500. With local funding in place, these funds will leverage, as I mentioned earlier, over $11.3 million from the following entities: PennDOT, using Act 89 funds, US DOT, Federal Transit Administration, and the US Department of the Interior, National Park Service, Save America Treasures Grant. Without this PennDOT's financial support through Act 89, this project would never got started or off the ground when they committed design and engineering funds to the project. I think it's important to know that the incline itself is an integral part of all the projects discussed today by providing public transportation access to the top and the bottom of the incline. We're excited to see that the incline project and all the other projects come to fruition and bring the Hillside alive with even more fun activities for the community and region. Thank you.
Thanks, Rose. Really appreciate what a great update. And while it's going to be closed for a while, that's okay because it's going to open up and it's going to be good to go in 2023. Much of the other Hillside progress, as kind of was referred to, has been catalyzed by support from DCNR through funding, such as the $100,000 for the Johnstown Urban Connectivity Plan, $225,000 for the incline plane Sliver Park, $7,000 for the incline plane planning and design. The department's support aligns with DCNR's vision of connecting every Pennsylvanian to within 15 minutes of a park or a trail. And while our region has been fortunate to have the local investment, it bears repeating that DCNR's contribution is critical from funding, but also from its technical support in making things happen. I'd like now to introduce Lori Yike, Recreation and Conservation Manager at the Central PA office to discuss DCNR's role.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for giving DCNR an opportunity to participate in this event. We are honored to be featured along with other distinguished partners in the ongoing investments in outdoor recreational historical places now underway in the Johnstown region. The Johnstown Hills Initiative supports one of Governor's priorities, government that works. DCNR and its sister agencies, PennDOT, DEP, and DCED, have and will continue to coordinate funding decisions and share priorities for trail projects to distribute the state's resources most effectively and efficiently. DCNR believes that interagency coordination is vital to establishing a statewide network of trails, such as the ones that are creating equitable access to recreational and historical places for residents and visitors to Johnstown. This is quite evident by the representatives from the other state agencies speaking today. DCNR's core principles of partnership, stewardship, and service strive to expand partnerships with communities, organizations, and state agencies. Our funding support is designed to accomplish exactly what is occurring in Johnstown: promotion of water-based activities, hiking and biking, all designed to add to their outdoor recreational and tourism appeal. Since 2018, DCNR has invested $1,208,524 in grant funding to support projects in Johnstown from the Keystone Fund. The Keystone Fund is a great deal for state government because it helps communities help themselves. Each dollar of the Keystone Fund investment typically leverages $3.13 in direct local investment in our parks, trails, community green spaces, and libraries. Since 1993, the Keystone has invested over $1 billion in over 4,500 projects, creating real and lasting improvements that make Pennsylvania a better place to live, work, and play. Through our grant program, the department builds connections between citizens and the outdoors by providing financial and technical assistance to support local park and recreation improvement projects. A great example of a regional approach to our work is the creation of 8 conservation landscape regions where parks, forests, rivers, and trails attract community revitalization and economic development efforts. DCNR provides technical and financial resources for local stakeholders and elected officials in conservation landscapes to holistically revitalize communities through strategic investments to enhance and create access to their outdoor, recreational, and historical assets. The Laurel Highlands Conservation Landscape, located in southwestern Pennsylvania, is defined by the 3 Allegheny Plateau ridges, the Chestnut, Laurel, and Allegheny. Johnstown is located within the boundaries of the Laurel Highlands Conservation Landscapes. Partners in the Laurel Highlands have been working for many years to protect the unique character of the region by creating a model of sustainable development tied to the natural and cultural amenities of this landscape. The Johnstown Hillside initiative demonstrates the effectiveness of this approach to strategic public investment in parks, trails, and waterways linked by a system of interconnected trails to urban centers. Investing in a network of trails is not only important to DCNR and the Johnstown region, but also statewide. Pennsylvania has an abundance of trails. Over 12,000 miles can be found on the website Explore PA Trails. Our recently completed Land and Water Trail Network Strategic Plan 2020-2024 outlines goals and strategies to ensure motorized and non-motorized trails continue to facilitate recreation, transportation, and healthy lifestyles for all Pennsylvanians for years to come. Our goal is to have a trail within 10 minutes of every Pennsylvanian and develop a statewide land and trail network to facilitate recreation, transportation, and healthy lifestyles for all, regardless of zip code. Strategic investments by DCNR and its partners have created a synergy between public investment in creating and enhancing recreation and trail and access to waterways and private investment in sustainable economic development that creates unique recreational experiences. A familiar example of a unique experience is Coal Tubin, an outfitter that relocated to the Central Business District of Johnstown in 2018. They provide transportation for tubing excursions to the nearby Stony Creek River. Other water-based recreation experiences have expanded in the Johnstown region from a unique investment back in DCNR back in 2011, when we awarded a $500,000 grant to install a water release valve on the Conemaugh River reservoir. This public investment in outdoor recreation resulted in year-round paddling that has benefits to the local economies. In conclusion, public investments utilized to improve and/or enhance trails, parks, and historical places described by the speakers today have proven to be money well spent. The Outdoor Recreation Industry Association recently found that Pennsylvania's outdoor recreation industry is the 5th largest in the nation. Pennsylvania's outdoor recreation economy generates $29 billion in consumer spending, $1.9 billion in state and local tax revenue, $8.6 billion in wages and salaries, and directly sustains 251,000 Pennsylvania jobs. DCNR appreciates the opportunity to continue to work with our state and local partners to further enhance equitable access to Johnstown's waterways, parks, and trails through strategic investment that benefit local economies and the health and well-being of all residents and visitors to the Johnstown region.
Good. Thank you so much, Lori. Those are certainly some impressive numbers, aren't they? Next, in addition to progress on the inclined plane and the hillside itself, the rivers that will serve as hubs for this recreational activity that are downtown, the Stony Creek and the Little Conemaugh, are now on track for transformational improvements. The Foundation for Pennsylvania Watersheds, a supporting organization of the Community Foundation for the Alleghenies, has been integral to bringing us to the point where we are now able to continue addressing the effects of acid mine drainage in the rivers, including the discharge at the bottom of the inclined hillside, which we will discuss in a minute, and as well as a major effort involving the Little Conemaugh. With that, I'd like to introduce John Dawes, the Executive Director of the Foundation for Pennsylvania Watersheds.
Thank you, Mike Kane. Our foundation is committed to restoring the Little Conemaugh River and has worked for the past 5 years using GenOn funds to abate acid mine drainage coming from 7 major discharges into the river, analogous to the obvious one that sits below the inclined plane. The Foundation for Pennsylvania Watersheds, along with our consultant Brandon Deal, first secured pilot funding which is ongoing funding from the federal budget process. Progress on this particular site represents a portion of that pilot funding. Also, the Office of Surface Mining, Reclamation, and Enforcement funding that is so critical to all of these projects, that legislation for reauthorization is being introduced in the next week or two in this Congress. So for those legislative officials that are on the call, we need to keep an eye on it and garner support for passage. The leads on this legislation are Congressman Matt Cartwright and Congressman Glenn Thompson, both from Pennsylvania, making reauthorization a bipartisan bill. Reauthorization of the Abandoned Minelands Fund is the first step in getting more projects like these on the ground. Secondly, I said before, the pilot funding is ongoing, bringing $25 million to Pennsylvania every year since 2016 to demonstrate that reclamation equals jobs. Now, the best example I can think of this is the project that we've all seen along Route 219 at Ehrenfeld. That project brought in millions of dollars of private funding as well as grants from the Foundation for Pennsylvania Watersheds, and 40 unemployed miners were brought back to work doing reclamation rather than coal mining. It's a great example, and in fact won a national award by the National Association of Abandoned Mineland Programs, and the voting was unanimous that it be a first prize winner. Now there's also the Reclaim Act, which is calling for more spending out of the Abandoned Minelands Fund, and it could be introduced very early in this Congress. And it's likely that our very own John Stefanko from Pennsylvania will be testifying before Congress on March 18th. So in my mind, it's a very hopeful time for reclamation of these very toxic sites. So thank you for your attention. And I'd like to introduce Joe Sanita from Tetra Tech, who does such a great job utilizing these funds doing restoration work. Joe.
Thank you, John. Critical to the future of all of the activities being discussed today is the remediation of the acid mine drainage known locally as the incline discharge, which we are happy to publicly announce for the first time today is to be addressed through a $231,000 grant from DEP's Growing Greener initiative. Headwaters Charitable Trust was the sponsor for the grant, working with the Cambria County Redevelopment Authority. As is typical in a sweeping development and conservation project, this is building on work that's been done before, as John just mentioned. The recently approved DEP Growing Greener grant will allow the Cambria County Redevelopment Authority to implement a study to identify and design the optimal remediation plan. Work under this grant is expected to begin this spring. To support the AMD mitigation and the Hillside Park projects, the hydraulic modeling of the river is needed to secure construction permits. That work is being funded by the city's EPA Brownfield Assessment Grant program in close coordination with the Army Corps of Engineers, who have recently completed hydraulic studies along the Stony Creek River, again, leveraging all the resources at our disposal. With the multiple projects along the hillside, the acid mine drainage is an issue that must be addressed. Even just being at a baseball game at Sargent Stadium, you can smell it. If you're rafting or kayaking, you can see it. If you look at a GIS map, you can clearly see the orange. To be able to clean that up is critical from an economic and environmental perspective. Why is this so important? We've talked about trails as a connector. So are our waterways. The Stony Creek was designated as Pennsylvania's 2012 River of the Year for its environmental rebirth and bustling recreational economy, which includes fly fishing, whitewater paddling, and river tubing. Upstream of Johnstown, the Stony Creek Gorge includes 9 miles of near wilderness trout waters and offers 15 rapids over 4 fluvial miles. A whitewater release valve was installed in the Conemaugh Reservoir in 2011 and allows for year-round paddling activities. Remediation of the incline discharge represents a major milestone to improving waters within the stream corridor. Submitted through the Cambria County Redevelopment Authority with the support of St. Francis University, the Growing Greener grant work is a critical step in cleaning up the remaining unsightly discharge in this part of the Stony Creek and making the entire area more attractive and clean. Both DCED and DEP have been important partners in building on the region's natural resources with a focus on downtown Johnstown, including the Iron to Arts Corridor and the Hillside development. We're grateful today to have John Stefanko, DEP Deputy Secretary of Active and Abandoned Mine Operations, here to provide an update. John?
Hello, how is everybody today? I appreciate the opportunity to be here as a Cambria County native. It makes this a little bit more personal for me, and to be able to participate is a high honor. Local groups have extended a lot of energy into revitalizing the downtown area of Johnstown, and the department is happy to be a partner in that work. DEP is currently engaged in a number of projects in the area through an abandoned mine land AML pilot funding grant of a little over $1.9 million via pass-through to the foundation of PA Watersheds that John mentioned, which includes the following components, all in this watershed impacting Cambria and Somerset counties. As shown on the slide, $200,000 will go to tree planting project that will reduce thermal pollution, which in general is about lowering the stream temperature naturally. $200,000 will continue the expansion of the tailwater fishery at the Conemaugh Reservoir. $700,000 will go towards the rehabilitation of the Oven Run A and Oven Run D passive treatment systems. $125,000 will continue the expansion of the inclined plane park. $75,000 will finish the technical trail loop on the Conemaugh bike trail. And $242,000 will be upgrades and maintenance at the Salt Lick Reservoir passive treatment system. And $200,000 will go towards the construction of an additional passive treatment system at the Salt Lick Reservoir. Other work that we have going on in the area is a ongoing rehabilitation of the Oven Run B through a set-aside grant of just over $1.7 million for the Stream Restoration Incorporated. The department is also finalizing the technical specifications and drawings for the Blacklick Creek treatment facility that will address 3 major AMD discharges in the Blacklick Creek watershed, which is anticipated to be issued for bid this spring of this year, and the construction to begin late summer and then completed sometime in early of 2023. The facility will restore approximately 25 stream miles to a viable fishery down to the confluence with Lick Creek. Addressing the incline discharge, which at one point seemed impossible to occur, is achievable, and a very important final element in the process that will improve the water quality and the aesthetics of the Little Conemaugh and Conemaugh rivers for the benefit of the visitors and for the community members as a whole. This work is just one of a number of efforts that have already occurred and actively going on that have all and will have significant positive impacts in the region, including the previously announced project to continue the remediation of the Little Conemaugh that will transform the river right in downtown Johnstown to the level of a trout tooth fishery. This is happening because of all the partnerships we have developed in the region and the collaborative vision of everyone involved.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate it. That was a great summation of the impact of the pilot funding. And we'll talk just a little bit more about the efforts for that treatment plant at the Little Conemaugh in a minute. But first, I'd like to introduce Amy Bradley, who is head of the Regional Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks, Mike. The business community is definitely aligned and poised to grow with these additional investments in the region's outdoor attractions. One concrete example of the economic impact, a group of local leaders is currently working on a campaign to position Johnstown as an ideal work from home destination. And the hillside attractions are definitely a major selling point for this. To quote our friend Mike Cook, if you can work from anywhere, why not pick a place with wonderful outdoor recreation just steps from your front door? We firmly believe that outdoor opportunities like this are the key to attracting more people and more businesses to our region. We have seen some interesting trends taking place as far as remote workers. There was a 159% increase in remote work prior to the COVID pandemic. A recent FlexJobs survey shows that 65% of people wanted to work fully remote, and another 31% are interested in a hybrid remote work environment. At the same time, another survey by Gartner shows that 47% of organizations plan to allow employees to work from home full-time. So that's increasing the number of fully remote work from anywhere organizations. At the same time, about 14 to 23 million Americans are planning to move as a result of remote work. And combined with those who are moving regardless of remote work, near-term migration rates may be 3 to 4 times what they normally are. The other trend that's happening then is that people are migrating out of crowded metropolitan areas. They're leaving the coastal areas, and people are beginning to move back to small towns and rural areas. The reason is less expensive housing, a lower cost of living, clean air, safety, closer to family, and better quality of life, which outdoor recreation and opportunities like those created by this project certainly contribute to that quality of life. All of this is to help demonstrate that the work on the hillside is a cornerstone of meaningful, transformational economic development efforts in the Johnstown area and the region. And we as a chamber are very thankful for the work that's underway.
Thank you, Amy. And I should mention, Amy, too, is also a board member of Vision Together 2025. So you can really see how there's this great collaborative effort around all this work. We're kind of getting near the end, so I want to thank all our presenters today, as well as everybody who joined on the call. It's a really impressive group, and I'm really grateful that you took the time to hear about this, and hope you're kind of as enthused about it as we are. It's been said that a community that is standing still is actually falling behind. Well, we're not standing still in this work, and it's happening because of the investments in the partnership. The Vision Together 2025 framework, the volunteers, and as mentioned, and I can't stress this as much as possible, the state partners and the other public partners, what makes this happen. So I'd like to finish by, again, thanking our elected officials. Thank you for their support of this work and for their support of the agencies working to help make this happen. This community alone couldn't do this work without these partnerships and without this public support. So thank you again to those joining from Emma Thompson and Jason Berardo from Representative Joyce's office, Brian Subich from Representative Thompson's office, Grace Nelson from Senator Casey's office, Lorraine Bency from Senator Toomey's office, Patricia Corbett from the EPA, and Andrea Carson from the Army Corps, Ellie Doyle from Governor Tom Wolf's office, State Senator Wayne Langerholtz, Jim Alaskis from Senator Langerholtz's office, State Representative Jim Rigby, State Representative Frank Burns, as well as, and I thought it was great that all 6 county commissioners were on the call. Scott Hunt, BJ Smith, and Tom Cherninsky from Cambria, Gerald Walker, Colleen Dawson, and Pam Tokarikis from Somerset, and Johnstown Mayor Frank Janakovic, whom I mentioned is part of Vision's board, and Johnstown City Council member Sylvia King, who's part of it, and Marie Mock, who's probably involved in everything that goes on in town. Thanks to Keisha Ball of our staff at the Community Foundation, who did a tremendous job herding the spaghetti to pull all this together. And finally, the very last part, John Stefanko of DEP and Joe Sanita referred to the Little Conemaugh restoration effort that will further transform a river that was so dead 8 years ago. There was no remediation plan for it. And as John said, now it's going to be turned into a Tier 2 fishery. It's a truly extraordinary turnaround that's in play right now. The Foundation for Pennsylvania Watersheds has created a 30-minute documentary regarding these efforts that FPW and the Community Foundation are sponsoring to be shown on WJAC TV in April. We'll make sure to send out the time and date when it's available. But if you want to stay tuned for just another minute, there's just a really brief preview that's going to be played. Thanks.
Stony Creek on the right. This is the Benz Creek coming in and dumps in right here. Up here we're going to cut down in, across a covered bridge from the 1800s and see if we can catch a trout in a stream that's come back from the acid days. Welcome to my backyard. When I was a little child, I could fish the little creeks when I was 5 or 6. But by the time I was 10, all the fish were gone. The pollution had gotten so bad. You could paint your car with the creek when I was a child, sitting down on the porch listening to my grandfather's stories. And the orange in the sky and the orange dust on everything, and there was no fish, and it smelled. From something that I thought would never, ever, ever support life again and was a shame and a waste, it's now got fish in it. I can take my grandkids swimming in it. I can find a crawdad in it. I never thought I'd be able to see this river fishable again.
Isn't that nice? That's just a really brief part of the rough cut of the video, which is actually premiering in Philadelphia with an event John Dawes will be at a festival there. John Dawes will be presenting it with a Q&A, and then we're going to, like I said, get it on WJC TV in April. So thank you again for joining us. We're really proud of the work that everybody's doing and of these partnerships, and that we're all pulling together to improve the quality of life in our region for the people who live here and for the people we want to invite here. Thank you very much, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or I can be helpful in any way. Have a good afternoon.